Celebrate with Pride, a SAGA DAT presentation. Many identities, one school.
What is Pride? Pride is a celebration that takes place in June of the different identities and sexualities in the LGBTQ community. Pride is confidence in oneself, accepting and feeling proud of who you truly are and all of the facets of your personality. Pride means showing the world who you are and who you love and not being worried about what other people think of you. Pride is the opposite of shame. It means not being afraid to be yourself. It is not letting other people define you.
The history of LGBTQ+ individuals fighting for rights. The first major uprising in the gay rights movement in the United States was the Cooper's Donuts Uprising. Cooper Donuts was a late-night cafe in Los Angeles. It was a gathering location for downtown LA's queer community. It was centered between two gay bars that were open for 24 hours, and it made a perfect hangout spot for queers, drag queens, trans people, and sex workers. At the time, there was a law for a person's gender expression to match what was on their ID, so police would routinely go around and check people's IDs, making sure their gender presentation matched what they were assigned at birth. On a particular night in May 1959, the police did their usual thing and attempted to arrest 2 male sex workers, 2 drag queens, and a gay man. The group resisted arrest by throwing donuts, coffee, and trash. The police fled the scene, and a riot broke out into the streets, and more police arrived, and many people were injured. The Cooper's Donuts Uprising sparked many more to come, such as the Compton's Cafeteria Riots and the Stonewall Riots. The Compton's Cafeteria Riot occurred in August 1966 in San Francisco and was a response to violent police harassment of drag queens and trans people, particularly trans women. Also, the world-famous Stonewall Riots occurred about 10 years after the Cooper's Donut Uprising. It began on June 28, 1969, when police raided the Stonewall Inn, which is a gay club in New York City. This raid sparked 6 days of protest and violent clashes with law enforcement, and the Stonewall Riots served as a catalyst for the modern-day LGBTQ+ movement around the world. Here's a little timeline of Seattle's Pride history. The first Pride Week was in 1974 and was led by David Neff. The first official Pride Week was in 1977 that involved Seattle's first official Pride March. The first Trans Pride was in 1997, which was actually the first one in the entire nation as well. And in 2010, the Space Needle flies the Rainbow Pride flag for the first time ever. And Trans Pride made a comeback in 2013 as the Gender Justice League restarts Seattle's Trans Pride Parade in Capitol Hill. This celebration was the first Pride to be held since Washington State legalized gay marriage in 2012. And here we are today with Pride Month kicking off this June. For information about Seattle's LGBTQ+ Pride celebration, check out seattlepride.org.
One example of a very important figure in the LGBTQIA+ community is Marsha P Johnson. Marsha P Johnson was a trans rights activist who played a large role in important movements for the LGBTQIA+ community, such as the Stonewall protests. Marsha was the drag artist and performer from New Jersey whose activism in the 60s and 70s had a large impact on the LGBTQIA+ community. Marsha would say that the P in Marsha P Johnson would stand for Pay It No Mind. Marsha and her good friend Sylvia Rivera, who was also an activist, founded STAR, Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, an organization to support gay and trans individuals who had been left homeless. Marsha was nicknamed the Saint of Christopher Street, where the Stonewall Inn is located, because of the generosity they had shown towards the people in New York's LGBTQ+ community. Another important figure is Sylvia Rivera. Sylvia Rivera was a transgender veteran of the 1969 Stonewall Inn Uprising and a tireless advocate for LGBTQIA+ movements. Throughout her life, she would fight against the exclusion of transgender people, especially transgender people of color, from the larger movement for gay rights. In 1963, Rivera would meet Marsha P Johnson and would become extremely close friends. The two would actively be involved in the Stonewall Inn Uprising on June 28, 1969. The Stonewall Inn Uprising was a turning point in the visibility of the gay rights movement. Along with Marsha P Johnson, Rivera would start the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, or STAR, in 1971. This group became a space to organize and discuss issues facing the trans community in New York City. Sylvia would receive a place of honor in the 25th anniversary Stonewall Inn. The Sylvia Rivera Law Project continues her legacy, working to guarantee, quote, all people are free to self-determine their gender identity and expression, regardless of income or race, and without facing harassment, discrimination, or violence. Another important figure is Stormy Delivery. Stormy Delivery was a gay rights activist best known for her part in the Stonewall Uprisings, along with Marsha P Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. Delivery spent years between 1955 and 1969 as the MC of the Jewel Box Revue, a touring variety performance showcasing both black and white entertainers who would feature men dressed in drag. Delivery was best known for possibly throwing the first punch of the Stonewall Inn uprising. 2 weeks after the rebellion, Delivery was part of the official formation of the Stonewall Veterans Association in July 1969. From the 1980s through the 1990s, Delivery worked as a singer and bouncer. She patrolled gay clubs and bars on Lower 7th and 8th Avenues on the lookout for intolerance. She would continue her vigilance against anti-gay and anti-black prejudice until she was 85. On June 7, 2012, Brooklyn Pride Incorporated honored Delivery at the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture. She was also featured in a film directed by Michelle Parkinson, Stormy, the Lady of the Jewel Box. On April 24, 2014, Delivery was honored by the Brooklyn Community Pride Center for her, quote, fearlessness and bravery, and was presented with a proclamation from New York City Public Advocate Letitia James.
To move forward, media representation, or the nature of the information which people consume via social media, TV, news coverage, etc., has the power to shape a generation's perspective on a topic. When that topic is the LGBTQ+ community, the greater the amount of representation, the more accepted members of the community will feel. Over the past century, inclusion and acceptance has increased significantly, and in turn, the numbers of people willing to conform to LGBTQ+ labels has also increased. In the past years, we have seen increasing visibility in shows such as Schitt's Creek with Dan Levy, Elliot Page in the Umbrella Academy, and Bridget Lundy-Paine in Atypical. In turn, the number of people willing to identify under LGBTQ+ has increased by generation. We see the traditionalists of 1913 to 45 at a mere 1.3% willing to identify as LGBTQ+. Increasing by a little bit, but still increasing, is the baby boomers of 1946 to 64 at 2%. Then there's Gen X, which is around 3.8%. Millennials, born from 1980 to 99, increased to 9%. And the mind-blowing statistic of Gen Z from 1997 to 2002, or those who are adults, has increased to 16%. This demonstrates that the increasing media coverage of pride parades, different LGBTQ+ characters in movies, shows, and news anchors, all of that has increased the willingness of people to come out and to feel accepted. And these statistics were brought to us by U.S. Statista from a 2020 study. The bottom line is, increased exposure through media equals increased comfort levels and acceptance. Then there's the not so good aspect of media representation. While representation increases, a mere sliver of overall TV characters includes LGBTQ+ people. Within the small sliver is also an overwhelmingly unrepresented POC perspective. Most queer characters are usually white. The examples which I listed in the previous slide are white. By limiting the amount of POC LGBTQ+ individuals' media presence, we are essentially stifling and restricting people to get in touch with their identities and express themselves truly. Then, there's also the issue of character flaws depicted within the LGBTQ+ community. Queers are often shown acting inherently different due to their identity, or shown playing into stereotypes. These are microaggressions and generalizations that poorly represent a population. Then, LGBTQ+ people may also be referred to as attention-seeking or selfish, for merely being different or wanting to understand themselves. I certainly have experienced this and hope to see the stigma break with the progressive power of our amazing generation.
There are many different gender identities, including male, female, transgender, gender-neutral, non-binary, agender, pangender, genderqueer, two-spirit, third gender, and all, none, or a combination of these. But to understand different identities in the LGBTQ community, we have to also understand that everyone has intersecting identities. Everyone has an identity or lived experience that is influenced by their racial, ethnic background, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, religious faith, tradition, family structure, geographic origin, socioeconomic status, and ability and disability. For people coming out with respect to sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, these emerging identities may be perceived as conflicting or mutually exclusive of these other aspects of identity. An example of this is between sexual orientation and spiritual beliefs.
Of labels, it is okay not to know. In fact, it is more than okay not to know how you identify in the current moment. The process of figuring out oneself does not happen overnight and won't always click right into place. That's why the LGBTQ+ banner includes so many identities and has a plus at the end. So one may test out and choose to align with a different label in order to feel comfortable and authentically themselves. The Q at the end for queer does not have a set definition or connotation, and it may be used or interpreted however an individual wishes to align with it. There's even a designated Pride Questioning Day on June 26th, and a specific flag for it pictured on the right. From the anecdotal perspective, I have bounced between bi, straight, bi again, lesbian, bi again, and pan, and my own learning process. And I'm here to remind you that regardless of where you are now, there is hope which lies ahead of you, and experiences and people which will be there to help you on your way. You as you are is enough, and you by no means have to figure anything out right now. All you can do is buckle up and be in it for the ride. All you can do is be there for yourself.
How to be an ally. Stay informed. Ask questions and do research if you are confused on certain definitions or current issues within the LGBTQ community. Always be honest about what you don't know. Be open-minded. It's okay not to know something, but make sure if you are saying something you should not, acknowledge and correct your mistake. No one is perfect, but everyone can change to make sure they are being respectful. And make a difference. If you hear someone saying something offensive or hurtful, don't be afraid to speak up. Words can hurt, and even if correcting someone can be awkward at the time, it is better to make sure people know the impact and true meaning of their words.
How staff can help from SAGA. Staff can help by asking for pronouns and preferred names, and asking what names and pronouns to use when calling home. Not dismissing people's identities or misgendering or dead-naming them. Treating us with the same amount of respect and support as other students. Listening to us. Not asking invasive questions. Not making assumptions about us. Respecting people's privacy. And not dismissing what LGBTQ+ students go through. It's better to try and end up making mistakes than it is to worry about it being too hard. What we go through every day is a lot harder. We need your support.
The majority of Pride events this year will continue to be virtual. However, that does not mean that they will not be celebratory and fun. We highly encourage you to check out local events happening here in Kirkland or closer to your home. You can look at seattlepride.org or the other websites we have listed on this slide for more information, and can also look on your neighborhood pages websites to get more specifics. For example, in my neighborhood over in Finney, we have the Rainbow Hop event that happens on June 5th. So even though the majority of events will happen the weekend of June 25th, there are events and celebrations all over the city all month to celebrate Pride in the month of June.
Have some fun pride baking. Here are some ideas for you. Send photos of completed projects to Miss Hewlett for posting on social media. Best frosting ever? Learn to make this frosting. It will change your life. Miss Hewlett. There are so many fun rainbow recipes and more on the internet. Look until you find one that you think you can make.
There are a number of national and local supports for LGBTQIA+ teens and youth. These organizations provide services to help students navigating identity, the process of coming out, possibly dealing with negative consequences from coming out, depending on how that goes. So the Trevor Project is a national organization that can provide support for students, as well as the Lampert House, which is a Seattle-specific organization. We also have SAGA here on campus to provide an inclusive, welcoming environment to all Kings. Same with Diversity Action Team. We are here to support all students on campus, making sure that everyone feels welcome and included and part of the King family.
Happy Pride Month, Kangs! This month, remember to celebrate who you are and who you love. And as always, remember, don't be shy, be an ally. This was DAT's last presentation of the year, so we'll see you next year in 2021 and 2022. Have a wonderful summer and happy Pride, Kangs!